Right. Ah! Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today I'll be showing you the most popular bullets that don't one-shot class 4 helmets even on a penetration. Some of these are common knowledge, but you might be surprised by a few, because exactly how this happens is a combination of damage, penetration, and distance. Let's start with the easiest example first, APSX for the MP7. APSX has nuts penetration right up there with other endgame rounds like M995, but the trade-off for high pen is often damage, and critically so for this cartridge because its starting damage is 35. Because the head HP is also 35, this means that it is not possible to kill any full health player with a headshot over any distance. As soon as the bullet leaves the barrel, it starts to lose damage due to damage drop-off, and because Tarkov registers health and damage in the decimals, even at point blank you'll hit for something like 34.9, which isn't enough to take them out. Now often this can cause a bleed on the head, but even if they tick down to 0, at the moment you don't currently die if you get to 0 on your head or your thorax if it came from bleeding specifically. You have to take some other piece of damage and get spillover in order for it to actually kill the player. The two other cartridges for the MP7 suffer from similar problems, but this is mainly due to armor mitigation instead on the class 4 helmets. While APSX's pen is so high that it deals its base damage through class 4, as the pen value on our bullets drops, this is not always the case. Despite FMJ having 40 pen to start with, giving it around an 87% chance to blast through class 4, once it does, the damage reduction is actually around 25%. Given this starts with a damage of 43, this means that you'll only deal around 32 damage, which again is insufficient to get the kill. You can see in the test here that our subject takes a square FMJ to the top of the head and survives on 3 HP, and it wasn't a ricochet. Thanks to Sad and Ida from my Discord for being my test dummies in this case. Subsonic SX is the same, because although it does slightly more damage, the pen is lower again, which makes the mitigation even stronger, and this one leaves our target on 4 HP instead this time. Okay, let's move on to the next caliber, 57x28, for its namesake pistol and the P90. Interestingly here, we have the quote-unquote best round SS190 with 49 damage and 37 pen, alongside the SB193 cartridge with 54 damage and 35 pen. The damage increase of 5 on SB193 is actually quite a bit over SS190, but the pen isn't all that much lower at only 2 less. You may have guessed where this is going. Yes, SS190 will in fact not pen class 4 helmets at point blank, but SB193 will. This is the one that I personally found the most interesting, as this is vitally important if you're using the 5.7 pistol and aiming for headshots, and although less so for the P90, it could perhaps still make a difference in some firefights. We'll be coming back to SB193's effective one-tapping range in a moment, but for now let's finish the bullets with point-blank problems. Another cartridge that is used occasionally is 9x21 PS. With the addition of the SR2M submachine gun this patch, it's seen far greater use than ever before, but was fairly overlooked in conjunction with the SR1MP pistol. BT, the best round in the caliber, has been moved to craft only, which has pushed players using these two weapons back to PS, which on paper looks pretty decent. 49 damage and 35 pen is similar to the top bullets for the 5.7 caliber. As is probably not surprising at this point, 9x21 PS with those stats will indeed not clear a class 4 helmet in one shot, even if it penetrates, and leaves the wearer with 3 remaining HP. The final 3 cartridges in this section are for the notoriously underpowered 5.45 weapons. These always get a bad rap, and perhaps this is one of the reasons why the community has hated them so much from the mid-game and onwards for a long time. PP, BP, and BT do all in fact suffer from this problem with class 4 helmets. BP has the highest damage of 45, but the damage mitigation cuts this easily to below 35. PP leaves our opponent on about 5 HP, and BT's lower damage overall leaves them on 1 HP instead. And this is despite having its pen buffed to 42 recently, which does help to avoid some of the damage loss. This simply goes to show that the trend of increasing pen but decreasing damage can sometimes have a critical effect on the overall performance of the bullets that we use that are close to the head HP threshold. I still really do think that the head HP could do with lowering a little to 30 to avoid some of these situations, as rifle grade rounds fired at full speed being literally incapable of one-shotting the head despite defeating the armor is pretty crazy, at least to me. So now that we've been through the main culprits, what about those that are close to the edge that are ruined by a bit of distance? 9x19 AP 6.3 is an honourable mention from the first section, but given it only has a 9% chance to pen, I didn't think it was worth adding properly. Its bigger, meaner brother PvP, however, should be able to deal with this no problem, with 52 damage and 39 pen. However, we have to remember that 9mm slows down very quickly because of its aerodynamics, and this is especially true with PvP as it starts off with an extremely high velocity, at least relative to the rest of the caliber. This means that because of the way that the calculation works, it slows down more quickly than the other bullets, and so its pen and damage get degraded faster than other rounds. After about 10 meters, the damage and pen drop-off combination should prevent it from tapping a class 4 helmet. In practice, we saw this deal 32 HP damage over 20 meters on the first shot, but from this point we were actually unable to pen the class 4 helmets again despite the headline pen chance being 75%. Maybe we just got unlucky, but we tried this about 10 times in total and only the very first hit went through. Something very odd appears to be happening, but not that many people are using this bullet at the moment, so it doesn't matter too much. For the next test, let's circle back to SB193 for the P90. As we said before, this has the ability to one-shot through class 4 helmets at point blank, but the question is how far out this continues to be true. A shot at 40 meters leaves our target on 1 head HP, so likely any closer than 30 to 35 meters or so, and this should continue to snag the kill. In a kind of inverse situation to the PvP that we saw a second ago, SB193 is actually a very slow round being subsonic, which means that its damage and pen don't degrade very quickly over distance, which is probably why it performs this well. The final cartridges to check in this video are 2 extremely common rifle rounds that are often used at medium ranges. Firstly, 7.62 PS, the staple of the early game, which has extremely good damage at 57 and 35 pen, which is adequate. As it flies, these get eroded like every bullet, and the mitigation effect should kick in quite strongly to prevent the round from dealing its stated damage as the pen goes below 35, which is really critical against class 4 armor. I had predicted this breakpoint to be somewhere around 60 meters, but after killing my poor subjects at 67, the cutoff appears to be closer to 80. This is actually decent news for 7.62 PS, because as long as you aren't trying to use it for sniping, 95% of Tarkov engagements are at ranges shorter than 80 meters anyway. The other one to check is M856A1. I personally use this extensively in the early to mid wipe until players become better geared. Again, this one seems to be more effective than my prediction, as I had suspected that 70 meters would be the cutoff. It turns out in fact that M856A1 will kill all the way out to 85 meters, and only once I moved all the way to 92 did it leave our subject on 1 HP remaining. Another good result for the mid-game 5.56 player buster. So overall, what have we learned? If you have a head tapping style, especially with pistols, the results here could give you pause for thought when using the 5.7 or the Shrimp, as there are bullets available for both of these that will possibly be better suited, i.e. SB193 and BT. For the 9mm weapons in general, crafting PvP is seemingly a complete waste of time right now because it just doesn't appear to perform well at all, even as well as the stats indicate. For the 5.45 AKs, this makes them really tough to use over range, especially those like the SAG AK, without upgrading to BS rounds. Although BS is lower damage still than BT by another 2 points of 40, the extra 10 penetration to 52 prevents the damage mitigation from a class 4 from kicking in strongly, and although I didn't test this one specifically, it should work out to around 100 meters, if not a bit more. If you're using the P90 or the MP7 on full auto in CQB, then this experiment is a little bit less meaningful. Sure, it would be nice to have the ability to always one-shot on a helmet pen, but the more important things with these weapons are hitting the head eyes or just powering through the thorax using their insane fire rates. So with that, go and check out my video on the best sustainable 5.56 combo for high level PvP next. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, hit all the buttons if you enjoyed the video, and as always, have fun in your raids.